everybody.
Kate, I just finished my little Canva listing presentation.
Oh,
Thank you.
good.
Yeah, a
Good.
little
How did
longer
it
than
go?
I like, but
You didn't use it yet. You just made it?
yes, I'm using it tomorrow night.
Cool.
So thank you.
You're welcome. Good. That makes me happy. All right, let me get everybody in here. So we're going to talk about checklists today. We have a lot of content on this in the CSC platform that I'm going to show you kind of how to input the checklist today. This is something, and I always like to just be very honest about the Compass tools. Checklists have given me a little bit of trouble in the past, and I don't know if anybody's ever kind of played around with them, but the way that CSC has them right now, and I know that there's in the past has been a way to overwrite this, but I'm trying to figure out like the best way so that people don't run into issues with it. The way that CSC has it separated out is kind of by stage. So meaning like nurturing after different categories. So when you input them, and I always like to do things like the way that you guys are going to do things from the way that Trisha, our last tech trainer, had it in there. At least for me right now, what I can see is that when I separate them out, since there's like 10 different checklists that you can input in, that's easy. But when you go in to automatically add these in so that when you get a new seller or you get a new buyer, that checklist auto-populates into their business tracker folder. It seems that any of them that are multiple checklists per stage, it's only letting it auto add one versus the other. And you can't really add, and this will all make sense with what I'm about to share, but there is one massive checklist that we have for like the entire seller stage or the entire buyer stage. But then once you put it into Compass, sometimes it alphabetically categorizes them, which is not what we need. We need it to go through by stage. So I'm going to do my best to kind of show you a perfect business tracker folder. And then I am going to get on the phone with Compass support and just see the best way so that no one is running into this issue, just because I know from the last time I had just gotten a few emails from some people when I guess this training happened. And it's a great idea in theory, but it can get a little dicey and it can get very populated very quickly under each client with the amount of tasks that it's then adding. Does that make sense for anyone who's played around in checklists before with like what I'm saying? Okay. So we're going to try and navigate this the best together. The idea of it is phenomenal. And it is something that like I've inputted my own checklist in here. So it's going to be a little bit different than the first training if anybody was on it. I think the last one we did was like on Valentine's Day or something like that. What my best practice would be, just from kind of what I'm looking around at as to what kind of content we already have for this. I love a lot of what CSC has in here. I would recommend maybe inputting them or taking them out somewhere, looking at this separated tasks and completing your own seller process on like a Google Doc or write it down or something. I know it might take a little bit of time, and then make your own checklist from the beginning so that everything regarding your process is all in one checklist instead of having like 10 separated out checklists. Does that make any sense? It makes sense in my head of like what I'm seeing, but it can get confusing quick. So overall, I would say use the CSC ones if it's working for you and if you're not running into the same tech issue that I'm having. Otherwise, take them as a guide to make your own system that works best for you, because there could be a lot of additional tasks in here that maybe don't apply to what you need for your system. Or maybe I've also gotten this feedback before that having 109 task checklist can make it look a little bit too busy in there for you to actually stay on top of things. So whatever makes the most sense for you to have in there, these are to help you stay on track for each client that you have going on. I don't want it to make things more complicated for you. That's the opposite of what this is. So whichever way works best, I'll show you how to make a new checklist. I'll run you through one that I've made, and then I'll show you how to actually input the CSC ones to use as a guide to maybe make your own. Sounds good. Okay. This is going to be one of my more techie challenging calls as your tech trainer. So this will be good. All right. First, I want to show you in the actual platform where you can go to see this. So Where's my share? Okay. So this is the platform here. I would go over to my coaching content. I think this is what I'm in like a coach's account, but I believe that's what it would look like for everybody else here. The selling and buying experience, this is end to end. And then you have a few different ones that you can pick from here. So you can do buyers, the whole buyer system, and you'll see there's 8 different results here. So this would be technically 8 different checklists that you would then be embedding into your checklist part of Business Tracker. So when you go in here, and to get here, I showed you go to my coaching content, you click view, scroll down to the bottom. Each one of these will guide you into whatever topic is hyperlinked here to go and learn more about it. Maybe a coaching session I've done, Chirag has done, whatever the situation is there. You can scroll down to the bottom. You have like a few other tool guides, like those 3-minute videos that you can watch, 2 to 3 minute videos. And then you add checklists to Compass. I am in my CSC account right now, so I'm not logged into Compass on this Gmail account. When you click this button right here, if you're on the same Gmail account that you're already logged in with through Compass, it'll automatically open up Business Tracker and open up that checklist for you to then play around with, auto add, do whatever you want to do. So let me stop sharing for 1 second. I'm gonna do that and open it up as if I were you guys in Business Tracker. Okay. So I would have just clicked that button, pretend I just clicked it. It'll automatically open up here. So here you can customize anything in here. I would probably say if you want to do it this route of adding in a bunch of these, then I would say to try and take the time to edit these as you're inputting them. If you don't want to do that, you can input all of these and then go back into your checklist and edit them from there. The one thing I would say is like, don't just put in these checklists without checking them, because the email templates that are embedded are not going to sound like you. Some of the tasks, like I said before, might not be something that's actually a part of your process. So make it a point to not just be like plugging and playing here. You really want to go in, and these are meant to be a guide. They won't sound specific or curated to you, but it is a nice guide to be able to use here. So you have all of these tasks. These are setup tasks. You will press copy and customize this checklist. Basically, what that is doing is, Chirag, let's just say, could be, anybody who's just made a checklist, they shared this checklist with you. So just as, my Canva presentation or any Google sheet or anything like that, it's going to prompt you to make a copy. That's what you just did. So you can also rest assured that whatever you're editing, you're not editing this for all of CSC. You just made your own copy, and now this checklist belongs to you, but it's using the template of what Chirag had put in there as the base. So here you can either add this to Business Tracker, meaning you can add this to a Business Tracker folder that you already have created. So you could search for, this is a buyer. So I would search for a buyer, and then you add this checklist. You can also press this auto add, which is says the checklist will be automatically added to future Business Tracker folders, whatever it was. I think it said like for buyers or anybody who's inputted as a buyer in there. So this is what I'm going to now show you. This is the problem that I'm having. And if anybody is not experiencing this, please let me know. And I don't need to talk to Compass. Maybe I'm doing something wrong, but I've ran into the issue where, and I would just go and do that, by the way, 8 times from the CSC website for each different stage. So when I go back to checklists here, now it turned off what I already had auto-populating, which was my CNC buyer's full transaction, and it's only letting me do this buyer consultation checklist. So if I have 8 of those, it's not going to automatically add all 8. It's only going to add this buyer consultation checklist that I just put in, because these checklists are separated out from CSC. Does that make sense of like what I'm saying? So
No, I'm lost.
okay. So if I go in, so before this was my auto add, which means that anytime I get a new buyer, that's the checklist that's going to embed into that buyer Business Tracker folder. Now that I just asked this one to auto add, it overwrote that one. So now the only checklist that's going to auto add into that buyer folder would be this CSC end-to-end buying buyer consultation checklist. And in CSC, we have 8 of those that are all separate checklists that make up the full buyer system checklist.
Okay.
So if I have, and you'll see here, like I just played around with these CSC end-to-end selling ones.
Mm-hmm.
See how there's like, I don't know, 12 or 13
Mm-hmm.
of these ones right here. All of those make up the full 110 checklist, system for a seller, but there's an only way to auto add one of those. So unless I wanted to go through each buyer or seller and click, let's just pretend like I'm doing the selling one here of all of these, and go in to add each one of them specifically for each client, there's no way to auto add all of these to come together for every seller that I have.
Which
So that's what I need. Yeah.
because the problem that we were having with checklist is the person you were nurturing had the same checklist as the person that was searching. So that we would have
Yes.
so many tasks show up. So
Yes.
I'm okay that I have to individually do it because I do want a checklist for nurturing and I want a checklist for searching and that's what I've been having a hard time separating those checklists out.
Yeah. So that's what I need to, and I just always want to be very transparent, but that's what I want to lean into a little bit more with Compass and figure out the best route for that, because I don't want people to feel inundated with so many tasks for people who are at a different stage. So, and I honestly, I might not mind it so much. And here's my overarching thing on this, because there's a way, for me to share all this information. We have a lot of great information at CSC, but I think it can get a little bit confusing sometimes to the actual agent of okay, I actually have to use this for a real client in real life. So I want this to make a lot of sense. That's why I don't know if for me, it might just be better to come up with your own checklist using the CSC checklist as a guide. And maybe that 110 tasks comes down to a full of 65 or 70 relating to your own tasks. Maybe a few of those emails that get sent are actually something that in your process you send in one email. So that's why I'm saying I would really take this as more of an opportunity to make your own checklist that could auto add as one full checklist to every buyer. Because if you really think about it, as you click off the tasks for a buyer as they move along the stages, those will start to go away, the ones that you've already completed. So let's say you had 110 to start with from a buyer who is nurturing. As you move through their nurturing steps, as you move through them signing with you, as you move through them getting an accepted offer and sending, the email for the appraisal or inspection or whatever all those little tasks are that are in there, they'll start to go away and only the next step will start to sort to the top. So as long as you're clicking them off as they're going, the task will continue to become shorter as the client moves in the classic path of a buyer throughout the transaction. Does that make sense of what I'm saying? A little bit. So if I took, let's just take this one. So this is the one that I was just using as an example for including all of them. So 137 tasks. So as this client, this is a specific client who's already listed, but let's say I had just had that first call with them. As this auto-populated into this folder for the client, I would have called them to understand their Med-C. Check. It goes away. I would have sent the email to arrange the call. It goes away. So as long as you're actually staying on top of these tasks that are being embedded in the folder system, they should be pretty clear. So does that, Margie, I think that was your question, right? As they're moving from that, checklists are only as good as the person who's staying on top of them, because I think we are all guilty of sometimes being great, I have this checklist embedded in this client. Maybe, and of course, you're doing these tasks, it's your process, but you may be forgetting to click them off. So I would make it a point to actually go through, use these reminders and click them off as they're going, so that the checklist is almost moving with you, with the client as the transaction is transacting, I'll say. Jeff, did you have a question?
Yeah, I've got 2 questions. So just on this screen right here, the tasks, as we
Yeah.
check off these tasks, if some we want to skip, do we just do we just cut those out? Do we just, like, let's say this new one, update folder and business tracker. If I
Yeah.
want to delete that, not even do that, is it the three little dots right there that I can check and just delete it?
Yes, you can
Okay,
delete
delete that.
task here. Yep. The one
Without
thing I would
even-
say is like if it's something, and this is also like kind of like why I'm saying it goes back to my original, like there's always the way that Compass gives us the tech, and then there's the best practice for the agent that's actually using it. And
Sure.
that could change from person to person. If it's a task that you feel is something that you're always deleting or you're always trying to skip, that's when I would go back to the checklist as a whole and delete it so that it doesn't even auto-populate to begin with.
Okay, great. Now, second question. Going back to the list of all the different checklists,
Yeah.
as we go from nurturing to showing to under contract, am I thinking clearly that if we go from, let's say, nurturing to start showing, so we turn off the checklist and the new one kicks in and starts, or do they ever overlap? Do we, you know,
This is what I'm trying to figure out the best way of doing it, because the ideal situation would be, in my opinion, to have this all in one, which
giant
CSC has
master?
made,
Yeah.
have it all in one checklist. But what's happening sometimes, and some people are saying this doesn't happen, it'll alphabetically sort them, so they all end up all over the place,
They,
which is why they're separated out right now into 8 different checklists. But I can't figure out, and I'm gonna figure it out because now I'm like fixated on this, is how can we have all of these auto add? Like, why can't I just have 8 different checklists? Because they're separated out from nurturing and whatnot. The different state is, why can't I just have them all auto add in the order that I want them to, so that I end up with the 130 tasks?
yeah, that would make perfect sense. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Be a blast. Be a blast. I know there's a way to do it, but that's why I'm also saying, like, I know a way around it is just to make your own checklist and put it in the order that you want.
Is there a way to
Usually,
delete?
Oh, sorry, Cindy, what'd you say?
I'm sorry, I should have raised my hand. Is there a way to
it's fine.
delete the ones that are like, mine came in like in no order whatsoever? They just like, they were in, just to delete it. I want to delete them off of the context I've added them to and start over.
You can delete it as a whole from here, but if it has already auto added to somebody, I think I've tried to do it before and I had to do it one by one. Let me see. I'll find out if I'm missing something. If anybody else has done that, please, you can share. But I think I've had to do it one by one, but I would like to think that there's an easier way of doing it. So I can also check on that with them. But from what I've experienced, the tasks that are in a folder are in a folder.
I think I've actually tried to do it where I deleted the whole checklist, and then it took it off any of the clients that had it. But
It did. Okay.
yeah, but you don't necessarily want to delete your whole checklist. I was just starting all over
I
and
know.
resaved the whole thing and did a whole new one. So I did try, because I
Yeah.
was flustered too, because I had added too many tasks and that was overwhelming. So I like the idea that it's split
Yeah.
up into smaller categories.
Can I jump
Yeah.
in, Tina? Can I ask you real quick? You said you deleted a checklist and it deleted it from all of the clients that were on that checklist?
Yes. But I was sort of in the beginning stages of trying to use checklists. So none of it was like detrimental because I hadn't really started using them yet. So it was sort of like a practice. And I realized I had included 135 tasks on people, and then I did run into the problem where it was reorganizing them by alphabetical. So it was so confusing. So I'm like, how do I get rid of all these without doing individual delete? So I went back and I just deleted the checklist that was on that person. And then I had to start all over with my new checklist. I'm not recommending that everyone do that because, like I said, I was just sort of playing around with it.
Yeah.
But it's how I got them all
Yeah.
on.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't know, like it sounds like I'm guessing, I'm obviously not a tech person, but it, like, I know when you do action plans, if you add something or change something, they make a note saying like, whatever you have changed will be good for moving forward, but not for not for anybody who is in the action plan now. So maybe that's what's happening for the people who said delete.
Yeah, I'll
them.
get clarification on kind of the best practice for that if you've just kind of overdone it on a certain folder and you want to clean it up. Overall, I would say if it were me, I would take a lot, unless like there's just one from CSC that like you really like that process of or something else, you know, and you just want to have that one be the one that auto adds. But I would really say like overall just coming up with your own system and using these as a guide, making your own checklist that's very specific to you and your team. This way, the only tasks that are actually populating are the ones that you need reminders on. I've also received feedback from people who use this and they say, I don't need a reminder about, I don't know, prepare equity protection plan or prepare your communication plan. Like maybe those are just things that actually fluster you a little bit seeing all this stuff. And you already have your plan kind of set in place and this stuff from CSC can be great reminders of, oh, I should have that in my process. But ultimately, I think use this to actually help you. Don't make it more confusing for yourself. Don't make it feel like it's become a more overwhelming kind of thing to look at in your business tracker. So I think checklists are a great reminder to have a very specific process and kind of put that on paper somewhere so that it can remind you. But don't make yourself too crazy over it. And if you wanted to make your own, I should probably show you that too. That's what I'm saying. You can go over to checklist. You can press create. So Compass, by the way, also has a good amount of checklists too. If you ever wanted to look through those, could do create checklist here. Hopefully everyone saw that. Create checklist, new checklist, can say buyer, seller, whatever it is. And then you could just say, you know, your team name or your name, buyer process. Put this in, I'll just say buyer process. Create checklist. And now you can go through and start to add in what makes sense to your actual process. Once it feels like it's done, and again, this will now be split up through each phase of its own. Then you can go in and press auto add in there. And that's the only one that needs to be auto fed into any new buyers that you have or new sellers that you have. A little bit more time consuming, but at least at the end of it, and this is kind of like how I've always at least worked with the Compass tools, like I'd rather spend more time and make sure that at the end of it, it's actually set up in a way that I want to use it instead of just checking a box in my head saying, oh, I'm using the Compass tools, but it's really not helping your business. So make sure that you're doing this in a way that makes sense to you.
Kate, will they add it, the checklist that you just showed us, will that fall into the alphabetical order? So will it mess up the different subcategories?
For some reason, when I make these on my own, mine does not. But I've heard that sometimes it does. I don't know why when I add in this CSC one, it's putting them all over the place. So that's what I want to see is like, is there a way that they want me to break it down instead, where we can upload it as kind of this one long version. I think that why I think Mind is not doing that is because I'm inputting these tasks in these separate phases, so to speak, like in the nurturing phase, in the whatever else is here, searching, in contract. So it's separated out when I'm embedding and creating this checklist from the beginning. I don't know if when it's auto feeding in, if it's just putting them like all under one phase and then alphabetically sorting from there. I don't know what it's doing for me right now.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'll do another checklist part 2 with my answers and the way that this works really well. But I think that this call is like a great way to at least show you where you can go and find this on the CSC platform and really start to brainstorm, what do you want your process to look like? Anything else?
Good stuff.
All right. Still some questions on it, but I'd rather come to you like honestly than say, you know, oh, just do this, do that, and then all the questions flood in. So that's kind of why I'm an agent tech trainer, so we can figure out how this actually is going to help us in our day-to-day, not make us insane. So I'll figure it out, and I'll I don't know, take out one of the other sessions that I feel like we've done a few times, and I'll do a part 2 to this to make sure it's working for all of us really well. All right, cool. Thank you guys. See you.